suffer from systemic addiction? There's really 4 good questions you can ask yourself. How independently can your organization function when the economy or energy costs fluctuate? That is a really, really good indicator. How do you use energy costs how do energy costs affect your bottom line? How seriously impacted would you be if your energy choice of source, or any energy source of choice, excuse me, was compromised? And what options would you be able to exercise to stay afloat if there were a regional, global, or national crisis, such as a war or a global recession like we're in right now? Opening the door to change is never an easy step, but it's the most important step. And today we're going to open the door to the possibility of systemic change by working together to establish the status quo in each of these 15 areas. What is that going to give us, and how are we going to be able to move forward? It's going to give us the capacity to be able to understand what we actually have to have and how our systems which are offering those things currently serve us. So we'll be able to identify the result or the deliverable and the method by which that deliverable is brought forward, and why the decisions were made to support that method of delivery. Very often the decisions that are made to support delivery is because middle management has a very, very interesting methodology by which they try to make their needs met. There's a lot of politics involved and there's a lot of agenda pushing involved, but it comes down to, at the end of the day, that there is an enormous amount of politics involved in policy and operations design. The best way to get through all of that is to go with an operations consultant such as ourselves or any other operations design consultant to diminish the power of middle management to push push their agenda. What you want to do is you want to make operations work for the company, not work for your management team. And that is an unfortunate reality, but the truth is most middle management does not make decisions that affect the bottom line positively for a corporation. Most middle management make decisions to support their level of management. And they recognize that that level of management is dispensable. The status quo. What systems must exist without question? Are you entirely dependent on them, or do you have other options should they fail? What are the subsidiary systems on either side of them in a flowchart? How do they react to organizational failure should there be a crisis? How do you manage that relationship so that it is best for your bottom line? How long has it been since you analyzed your operations for their status quo? How long has it been, and who was involved in that assessment? How does outsourcing impact your systemic independence? Very often when you are looking at corporate environments especially, outsourcing is sold to you as a method by which you are able to obtain savings with regards to human resource costs and that sort of thing. What they don't take into consideration is the lack of accountability built within the system, the lack of accountability built within the system of the third party that you are functioning with. Many third-party call centers will augment their actual ratios in service to better the view of their service, or worse, they will design their systems accordingly so that you are missing the verbatim that is necessary for you to be able to do effective research and development over the long term so that you can keep your product current and valid and relevant. And so often is the case that the outsourcing that you are doing is actually negatively impacting your product as opposed to positively impacting your bottom line. So you need to really assess that and really assess the third party environment that you're working with to ensure that the systems are properly set up to reflect that. So often in boardrooms, this is information that falls between the cracks. So often in boardrooms, it is really unfortunate that the most important R&D is done in focus rooms or focus sets instead of in their call center where it needs to be done. So there are ways to handle it. It just needs to be handled better. And a company such as ours is the way to go in terms of call center design, so that you can actually identify where your development, your R&D dollars need to be best spent to suit your customer base. Now, what would you do if you were in a position where you had to change quickly? What would you do as a corporation if you had to identify a very quick change to save your company? How would your clients function if you're with your product if that were the case? Has there been planning put in place with regards to function with that? Where would you focus to get your energy? We know that if you can't change within 3 months under a significant change in energy strategy, you will go out of business, because most businesses cannot maintain downtime beyond 3 months. So how much time and energy would you have to invest to overcome the challenge presented if there was a global energy crisis, or, like I said, a global recession that like we've just been through, where there was no government assistance available to you? How would you function within that environment? Is there a plan in existence to accommodate for that kind of eventuality, so that you can move forward? And are you connected intrinsically with the systems that support the movement should you need to do that? Or would you actually have to start from scratch at the time in which it happened? This is the kind of planning that will assist your operations to function in an unstable global environment much more effectively than they do now. Now we know where the real power is. And what I always say to people is, if you can come to terms with your reality, you know where your real power is. Real power comes from the acceptance that some of your current operations are defined by something that's no longer relevant to your future. And to be able to move into your future with an investment of forward thinking is the best way to be able to define your futures or your company's economic bottom line. Moving into the future with old operations, as I always say, is like expecting your Model T to run on batteries without a conversion kit. You can't bring old operations that are based on dirty fuels and dirty decisions and band-aid solutions. You can't bring all of that stuff into the 21st century when you are sitting in a situation where the entire system is being focused towards an irrelevant foundation product, which is electricity or coal. How do we move ahead? We move ahead